Hi, I'm Jenny, and welcome to my Saturday night October special. So tonight I'm going to start telling you my scariest ghost story. And it's a long one, let me tell you. I'm going to divide it into four. And also I'm going to have other members of our family on here also to tell their story. So to tell you the story about my house, I must first start from the beginning. I moved to Arizona with my children, and I was a single mother, and I moved here with the kids in 2005. Now, I met my husband, that was March of 2005. In January 2006, I met my husband and we started dating. In July 2007, we moved in together. And when we moved in together, we stayed in our neighborhood, which is in Phoenix, but kind of on the border of Scottsdale. So the house that we lived in was fairly new. It was built in '82, and it was a pretty good sized house, 2 stories. It was a beautiful house. And when we were looking at houses and we decided that we were going to move in together, we found this house. You know, it wasn't far. It was still within walking distance for the kids to go to school, because I had 3 children and he had 1. So together the 4 kids went to the same schools, and they were all within walking distance of where we lived. So we wanted to stay in that neighborhood. So when we went to meet with the real estate agent, and we went through the walkthrough with the house, and we just rented it, but it was a real estate agent who owned the house. And when we were walking through, I thought, oh, this house is perfect, it's beautiful. And my husband, who had never mentioned the paranormal before, for some reason, we were getting ready to leave. We had signed the papers for the lease, and we were walking out, and he turns around and looks at the real estate agent and says, "Does this place have ghosts?" And the real estate agent looked at him funny, like startled, and says, I have never been asked that question," and walked out without answering that question. And I thought, why would you ask that? That's a weird thing to ask, you know, because he'd never mentioned it before, and as far as I knew, he wasn't a believer in the paranormal. And when I had mentioned things about that before, he just acted like I was silly. So I thought it was a strange question for him to ask. Either way, the agent never answered the question, and it was his house. He owned it. And I later on had asked him about it, but we'll get to that. So we move into this house, okay? This is from the start. I met my husband at the apartment complex that we lived in. So I lived in one building, he lived in the other building, but our kids were friends. And that's how we met. He was a single dad, I was a single mom. That's how we met. So we condensed both of our apartments into this big house. I had no animals. He had a black lab, and he was still a baby. He was, I think, a year old. His name was Midnight. And he was a beautiful black lab, so sweet. And we were moving into this house, and we thought we would take a load of his stuff over first with the dog, because the apartments were smaller, and we thought, you know what, he'll have room to run around and it'll be good. So we take one load over with the dog, and we left him there, and we were unpacking boxes. And I had unpacked, I guess I took a load of my kitchen stuff over also. So I was unpacking the kitchen stuff, and I was trying to be quick about it because, you know, we both had full-time jobs, the kids had school. It was July, but, okay, so the kids weren't in school, but we both had full-time jobs, and we knew that the kids weren't going to do anything. So we had taken a couple days off so that we could get our stuff moved. So we took one load over, and I had unpacked a big box of kitchen stuff, pots and pans. I hurried up and I put them away, and then I had stuff wrapped in newspaper, and we had the box sitting over on the floor. So my husband, who was my boyfriend then, and my daughter were getting ready to go get another load, and I had already left. And they went they were going out the kitchen door. The kitchen kind of had a door that went right into the garage, and they were going out that door. And he saw the box move, and the box just went like moving with newspaper, and the whole box kind of shook. So he thought they were mice. So he went over to the box. He pulls all the newspaper out, and there's nothing in the box. Puts all the newspaper back in, and it's just like a couple sheets. They weren't really wadded up. They were just kind of, I'd wrapped some pans in them, and they were just kind of in there. So there weren't a lot. So he didn't tell me this until later on. Then him and my daughter left and whatever, went to get another load of stuff. I came back before them, and when I got back, the dog was in there, in the house. And I opened up the front door, and the dog ran over to me, and he's drooling, and he's howling, and his hair is falling out everywhere, and he leans up against my leg, and he's drooling and howling and slides down my leg and falls on the floor. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so I felt bad. I'm petting him, and I'm trying to see what's wrong. He doesn't look like anything's wrong. So I open up the front door, and he takes off out the door, and he runs and he jumps right into the truck, and he's in the front seat. Both doors are open, the passenger side and the driver's side, and he won't get out of the truck, and he won't look at me. So I'm trying to talk to him, and I'm asking the dog what's wrong, and he won't look at me. So I finished unloading that truck and bringing everything in, and I left that stuff there, and we went back to get another load. So I ended up taking him back to the apartment, and when I opened up the door of the truck and the door of the apartment, he shot out of that truck back into the apartment, and he would not leave that apartment. So we finished moving the rest of the stuff with the dog in the apartment. He wouldn't come out. So the very last load we brought was from Robert's apartment, and the dog came, Midnight Paul came also against his will. So that was the moving in experience. Then the first night in the house, we're all in the house. All of our boxes are there. We did it all in a day. And the kids are upstairs setting up their bedrooms, and there's boxes everywhere because we had, like I said, brought 2 whole apartments into one house. So we have stuff everywhere. And that first night I was downstairs finishing putting everything in the kitchen, because to me the house isn't set up unless the kitchen is done first and my bed second. Or the kids' beds. The bed's in the kitchen. But that had to be done. So I was finishing up with the kitchen. We didn't have the phone turned on yet. Everybody had cell phones, but in 2007 everybody had the little flip phones, little razors. And anyway, my youngest son didn't have one yet. He was just starting middle school then. He was 11. So my youngest son was 11. So I'm downstairs in the kitchen and still unpacking stuff, getting everything done. All of a sudden I hear a phone ring. And I'm looking around. My daughter was downstairs with me for a minute. I don't remember what she was doing. But my husband was in the bedroom setting up our bed. And Chase was in the hallway. And I could hear him shuffling around. I could hear this phone ringing, and I could hear him shuffling around. So the way the house is built, being in the 80s, very 80s style in this neighborhood. Really beautiful house though. So the front of the house, the living room had, I don't even know what you call it, but it was like the cathedral ceiling, and the hallway upstairs that led to all the bedrooms was open, so you could look over the wall and see the entire living room and formal dining room. And also you could look across to the other house because it's built exactly the same way, and we had this huge arch window above the doorway, so you could look, and if their light was on at night you could see them walking in their hallway. It's kind of like where the hallways were. But we both had that, you could look down over the living room from that area. And there was when you looked over that, there was a bedroom here to the left. And then if you went back this way, our bedroom was over here, and it had big double doors, and it was the master suite. And then you had to come back this way and turn right. And there was a bedroom on the left, and then a bedroom at the end of the house. So that's how the house was set up. So Chase's bedroom was all the way at the end on the other side of the house upstairs. But he was in the hallway. He also heard the phone ring. So he was searching through the box. He could hear the phone ringing from inside the box that we packed it in. And it was, you know, a corded phone that you plug into the wall, because back then we still had landline. And we were getting it turned on, but we hadn't gotten it turned on yet. And it was still packed. And the phone was in the box ringing. So I could hear this. All of a sudden, I hear him upstairs pick up a phone and say, "Hello? Hello?" And then silence. All of a sudden, I hear running feet and Chase running down the stairs, and I see him hit the landing and come flying at me. And his eyes were this big, and he says, "Mom, Mama, Mama, the phone's ringing." I said, "Okay." And he says, "It's in the box and it's not plugged in. It's ringing." And I said, did anyone say anything to you when you answered it?" And he said, "No, nothing." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, you know, it's a phone malfunction. These things happen." So, and I could probably chalk it up to a phone malfunction if that was the only thing that happened in this house. So, before I go any further, I will tell you that our lease was for 2 years, and we lived there for 2 years. This is 2 years worth of things happening every day. And when people tell you that hauntings happen at night, and when ghost hunters come to your house, they want to come at the witching hour in the middle of the night, well, let me tell you, if your house is really haunted, it happens all day long. All day. Doesn't matter who's there, because things got crazy. Okay, so that's the first night in this house. I don't think I'm missing anything about the first night. Oh, no, yes I am. Okay, so everybody's tired out from moving all day long. Everybody goes to bed. It's the middle of the night. We're upstairs in our bedroom still trying to, you know, get things together, put my dresser drawers back in, hang my clothes up, all that, because all day long I had focused on the kitchen. My husband set up the bed, but I only focused on the kitchen. I still had to put away my bathroom stuff, you know, get everything ready for the morning. So it's the middle of the night. We don't have a TV on because we hadn't plugged it in yet. We were just putting things away, and we were talking quietly in our room. Then I heard the dining room chair set. It was a smaller wooden table set. It was from my apartment, and it was just the kids and I, so I had 4 little wooden chairs, and it was a small wooden table. And I clearly heard the chair push back and push back into the table, like somebody was excusing themselves from the table. And it sounded like weight. You know when there's weight in the chair and wooden legs move across tile? It was a tile floor, and it was the big square tiles, but you could hear that squeak of wooden. You know, these chairs didn't have those little plastic feet on them. It was just wooden chairs. And the chairs came out with that wooden squeak against the tile and then back in. And I thought, oh my gosh, the kids are awake. Immediately after that, I heard, and so did Robert, I heard that door open from the kitchen into the garage. It opened and it shut, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're trying to sneak out of the house. You know what? They're teenagers, and they're all gathering now, and they're planning, and they're trying to sneak out. And he thought the same thing. So we thought, we're boogieing downstairs and we're going to catch them right now in the act. So we, run down the stairs. It's quiet. I didn't even look at the table and chairs. I just went right for the garage. So I opened up the garage, I flipped the lights on, and I'm walking around like an idiot going, aha! I caught you! And Nobody's in the garage. I even looked under the car. I looked everywhere. And that time there wasn't many places to hide. There was a couple of big cabinets, but we hadn't put anything away yet, so we opened them up. They were empty, and my car was in there, but you know, I looked under the car. The kids weren't there. The kids were not in the garage. So closed the garage door, locked everything back up, and we went upstairs and I checked their bedrooms, and they were all dead asleep in their bedrooms. And at that point, like I said, Chase and Ryan, my two boys, Chase is the youngest, and then Ryan is my second oldest, and then Robert's son is in between. So Chase and Ryan had the bedroom down at the end of the hallway. My daughter had the bedroom in the middle. We had the big bedroom, and Andrew was in the front bedroom. And checked them all. They're all dead asleep. Okay. So I thought, well, that's weird. Maybe we're just hearing things because it's a new place and we're not used to these sounds yet. Okay. But by this point, too many things had happened during the day, and I was already starting to wonder. This is not new to me. But I wasn't taking it as anything threatening or scary at this point, because I'm thinking it's just a basic haunting and nothing more than that is going to go on. I was wrong. So, after that, that was just the first day in the house. After that, it was a whole continuation of chairs moving out every night and moving back in. It sounded like somebody excusing themselves from dinner and back in. Every night this happened like clockwork. I mean, it was all night long. These chairs would move back and forth. Sometimes when I woke up in the morning, the chairs would be out scattered a little ways. They wouldn't be up against the table where we left them. So there was that. Also, the dog was always terrified of the house, and he would try to lay under the bed, and when we were upstairs sleeping, he had to be up there with us. He wouldn't be downstairs. So he was up there at this point in the beginning. In the beginning, he was upstairs. After that, things changed. We, got settled, and in 2008, we were planning our wedding. We were getting married. 7, 8, 9, yeah. So, 2008, we're planning our wedding. This started at the beginning of the year, and it's no surprise. Halloween is my favorite holiday. I think it's the most fun. I absolutely love it. So we're planning our wedding, and we ended up having a Halloween wedding. And it was Halloween themed. We ended up buying a timeshare and having our wedding there, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful night. The whole thing went great, but planning was a lot of work. And I did everything myself. I catered it. I made the cakes. I did everything. Decorated. My mom made my wedding dress. It was really awesome. But the whole time planning this wedding, living in this house, was crazy. It was constant commotion. In the middle of the night, we would be awoken by, it sounded like explosions. I seriously thought there were bombs going off outside the house. We had these huge double doors. At night, I would leave them open almost every night because I was leery, and I wanted to hear everything that was going on. And several times in the night, we would be awoken by what sounded like bombs going off outside. I literally thought we were being bombed. I can't even explain this to you. The first time it happened, I don't remember how many nights we were in the house before it happened, but the first time it happened, it scared me so bad. We were tripping over each other trying to get out of bed. I literally fell. My feet were still wrapped in the blanket, and I fell out trying to get out to check on the kids. And we're tripping over each other trying to get out the door and in the hallway, and the big chandeliers are shaking and rocking. And I'll tell you what, when I saw paranormal activity, I went with my husband and a whole group of our friends, and now I'm getting chills. I wasn't expecting it, but when the banging started happening and the chandeliers started swinging, we both stopped and looked at each other in the theater. We were like, oh my God. We were out of the house by then and living in this house, but it still gives me chills and it still scares me because I have never experienced anything like that. It was very scary, you know. This happened every night. Something happened every night. I never had a quiet night in that house. And those explosion things happened consistently for 2 years. Not every night, but maybe every couple nights, every few nights. It was weird. It was so weird. I couldn't even begin to tell you how or why or what it was. I don't know. But that was one of the things that happened constantly. Another time, it was about, I don't know, maybe 7. It was only a couple months after living in the house. It was probably around Halloween time, actually, because we moved in July. So October of 2007, I was sitting downstairs and I was watching TV. The kids weren't home. They were all at their friend's house. At this point, the kids had already had experiences and the kids were gone all the time, as much as they could possibly be. And I didn't realize that was the reason. I didn't want to scare them, so I didn't tell them that I was experiencing anything in the house. And I didn't, at this point, I still wasn't sure, and I thought, oh, people are going to think I'm completely insane if I tell them these things. And at this point, nothing horrible had happened yet. So Robert was in the bathroom upstairs. Again, the bathroom is in the bedroom, so you have to walk through the double doors and turn right to go to the bathroom. Double doors were closed, bathroom door was closed. I was sitting downstairs with Midnight, the dog, watching a movie. And it was about maybe 9 o'clock in the evening. And I'm sitting there with the dog, petting him, watching this movie. I don't even know what we were watching. But all of a sudden, Robert comes out of the bedroom, the double doors, and he looks over from the hallway at me, and his eyes are really big, and he says, was Midnight just up here? And I said, no, he's laying right here. And our lab was a big lab. He was 135 pounds and he was tall. He was a big, big boy. And he's lazy. So he's laying down here by me, and as long as he's getting pets, he's not going anywhere. Plus, he's terrified of the house, so he's not going anywhere. So I look up at him and I said, no, he's right here. And his eyes were big, and he said, that's what I was afraid of. And he comes running down the stairs. Now, I know you've seen my husband in videos. He's a big man, and you wouldn't think that he'd be that scared. He was terrified. That was the first time that he'd encountered a paranormal thing other than the box the first day. So in the phone ringing thing, he just chalked up to a malfunction. I skipped over a bunch of stuff. I'm terrible about chronological order in storytelling. Anyway, I'm going to continue with this. He was in the bathroom, and he was on the toilet, and he's probably going to kill me for telling you this, but he had the door shut, all the doors, and he heard snorting at the bathroom door, and he thought it was the dog. And he said he started talking to the dog saying, hey buddy, what you doing? What you doing out there? And all of a sudden little black claws came underneath the door. He could see the little black claws, Midnight Paul's claws underneath the door, and the snorting. So he wasn't scared at this point because he knew it was his dog. But when he opened up the bathroom door to come out, the bedroom doors were still shut and the dog wasn't in there. We were downstairs. So what was that? I don't know. But I have to backtrack now because I'm terrible about my chronological order. The first full day in that house, when I woke up in the morning, Robert had to go somewhere that morning and the kids weren't home and I was in the house alone. And I was taking a shower and I came out of the shower and the printer was sitting in the middle of the floor because we had put up the bedroom. This master bedroom was huge, so we kind of put our office off to the side, and the desk was up and he put it together, but he hadn't put the computer together yet, or the printer up there, or plugged anything in because it got late. So the printer, the computer, everything were in the middle of the floor. The cords he had taken up, and they were zip tied, and everything was waiting to be put together. So the printer was trying to print something, and it was literally going like it's going to print, and there was no paper in it. So whatever it was going to print, I don't know, but I just stood there staring at it. I'm wet, in a towel, staring at my printer, trying to print. I don't know. I don't know what it was going to print. In fact, I'd be scared. I've had friends of mine say, well, why didn't you put any paper in it? Well, I didn't know where any paper was. B, that's not the first thought that jumps into your head. So I actually just left it alone, grabbed some clothes, and went downstairs. There was a lot of things that happened all over the house, but the upstairs was the worst part, being upstairs. During the day, I can safely say, I've most of the time working. I'm a 4-day-a-week worker, or was, and at that point, I had Tuesdays off. So on Tuesdays, the kids were at school, Robert was at work, and I was home alone with the dog. And at that point, I was doing wedding cakes, birthday cakes. I was catering weddings. Anything. And I also had an account with a coffee shop in Scottsdale, and I was doing all their baking for muffins, cakes, cookies, tea cakes, you name it, I was making it. I had this whole baking business, catering thing going. That's when I had a lot of energy. So I was doing that plus working in the medical office full time as a back office nurse. So I did that for a lot of years. But that house too, I had to do something to stay busy. I had the baking business actually before I even moved into that house. It started when I was in the apartment, and I had just moved to Arizona, and I started working for a dermatologist at that point, and figured out there was a niche because I've always been a baker, and I was supplying tins of cookies to drug reps, and so the drug reps would purchase all kinds of different cookies or varieties in tins and different sizes, whatever. But every year and for every holiday, I would bring menus about what I was making for this season. And so, anyway, I had this business for a while. So, I was doing that out of this house. I'm getting off track. So I was awake a lot and really busy a lot and home alone a lot baking. On my days off is when I would do my big baking for the coffee shop, and then I would deliver later. But while I was in the kitchen baking, it could be 11 a.m., it could be 1 p.m., it didn't matter. The dog would be laying on the love seat because off the kitchen we had the kitchen dining area, and then over here we had a two-way fireplace, and then we had a family room. And in the family room we just had a love seat and TV over there that we could see from the kitchen. The seating area, I guess you could say. That we kind of treated like a family room. So we were always congregated, of course, in the kitchen, around the island, the table. But Midnight would be always laying on that love seat, and I would turn on the TV for noise because otherwise you would hear stuff. You would hear the footsteps, you would hear doors closing, opening, all those kind of things. And so I would keep the TV on. Then the bowling started. It sounded like somebody was dropping a bowling ball, and it was rolling down an alley through my bedroom, right above that area. The dog's head would pop up and look around, then he'd tuck his head back down. He was terrified. This bowling thing, I can only explain it like bowling. I can't explain it to you any other way. It was something seriously heavy and rolling. And it sounded like it would drop over here and roll all the way to what would have been my closet in my bedroom. And you would hear it the whole way. Then stomping. You would hear stomping, like big heavy footsteps stomping across. That drove me nuts. But the dog was terrified, especially of the stomping. And I would hear that, and then if I didn't have any baking to do or I was done with the baking, I would just leave the house. I was scared, but the poor dog had to stay there. But most of the time, he would not get off the love seat. He seriously was on that love seat all the time. And here I'm laughing about it like, it's a nervous laugh, let me tell you. Reliving those memories is just, it's crazy. We lasted there until 2009. When we moved into this house, we looked for a rental on Craigslist because at this point I wasn't sleeping. I was crying all the time, and I'm not really an emotional person, at least that cries all the time. And you couldn't sleep at night. It was just, it was loud, and then there was a last draw, and I'll get to that the last night. But there was a last draw. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and we moved. But when we were moving, we took the first house we could find, which was this house. And this house is much smaller than that house. This house is like half the size. It's a small house. But we have lived here now for 10 years. We ended up renting this. We rented this house first, and then we ended up buying it. And I'm glad we did, but it's much smaller. We actually had to get rid of a lot of stuff to be able to fit in here when we first moved here. And my daughter had already moved out. She couldn't stand that house so much, and she's the oldest. But when she graduated high school, she was out of there. And it wasn't because she wanted to be away from us. It was because she was terrified of the house. So she took off pretty quick. So when we moved here, this is a 3-bedroom house, but it's smaller. It was the 3 boys and us. And we've just lived here ever since. We ended up buying the house, and we're always doing something to this little tiny house. But it's mine, and I love it. And here's the thing. It's safe. And now, after living through the experience that I had in that other house, I am terrified of possibly happening again. What if we decided to buy a bigger house and we moved there and it's haunted? I mean, you know, things happen here and there here, but yeah, big deal, nothing like that place. So we stay in this little house mainly because of that. I never want to go through that again. So there's a lot more things that happened, and I think I have already taken up far too much of your time tonight. So I will pick this up next week and tell you about the other things that happened that I saw with the kids and myself and my parents and my sister. And we'll probably do a call with my son. He lives in Michigan. He moved back to Michigan. My son is 27, and he moved back to Michigan 2 years ago. And it's hard on me, and I hate every minute of him living away from me, but he's agreed to get on speakerphone and tell his side of the story about what he saw, because everybody had their own experience, and that includes friends. We had the haunted house, and all the kids were scared, and every kid in the neighborhood knew it, and every kid in the neighborhood was terrified. And it wasn't just the explosions and the opening and shutting of the garage door every night and the chairs moving out every night. That stuff happened every night. We were used to it. Footsteps on the stairs, the cold air breezing through the house in the middle of the summer on the second floor. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you next week. There's so many other things I want to tell you. It's 2 years worth of incidences, and I'll tell you my daughters also next week. I'll talk about the kids next week. My side of what I saw with the kids and my fears. So, if you're interested, stick with me. I'm going to do this every Saturday in October because 2 years worth of experiences in a house, there's a lot to talk about. And also, the last day of the story, the last weekend, the last Saturday in October, I will, I promise I am going to do a drive-by of the house, and I will film it for you. I haven't been back there in that neighborhood, and I haven't been by that house since we left it, because I'm terrified, and I have probably seen too many scary movies, but I feel like it would know I drove by and is waiting for me. It still scares me. And the reason I think that is because my daughter went to that house with her friends after we moved out. And that's another story. So if you like this story, let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really helps me a lot, and I sure do appreciate your support. And hopefully you don't think I'm a crazy person telling this story, but I have to tell somebody. It's crazy. I've heard a lot of stories, and I've seen a lot of movies, and I have not seen, there might be 2 stories out there that come close to as many things happening in that scary movie or that haunted house as what happened to us in this house. And we did have paranormal investigators investigate it. So that story will be coming up in October also. Anyway, stay tuned. I'll see you next Saturday with part 2 of my ghost story.